What's up? What did I come here to say? Oh yeah. Here's what I don't get about certain individuals who claim certain religions and actively attempt to orchestrate prophecies into fruition. Like, what makes you think that God needs you, a human being, to actively work to bring about an event that was prophesied thousands of years ago? Like, if God actually wants that event to take place, if that prophecy were true and not just a warning for the people of the time, because that's another thing y'all don't seem to understand about prophecy, is like, the future is always changing. Okay? The future is always changing because we are creating the future right now as we speak. With every passing moment, every choice you make, every action you take, you are creating the future. So because the future is always being created, the future is always changing, okay? We're not... The outcome is going to be the outcome regardless. There's nothing anyone can do to change the outcome. And those of you who think you know what the outcome's going to be, like, chances are you don't. So in terms of the outcome, like, you have no control over that. You're not God. But in terms of how we get to that point, that's on us. That's on us. That's on the choices we make. And so for human beings in 2024 to be actively attempting to orchestrate prophecies from 2,000 years ago is just so completely absurd. Like, why are these the people we look up to as religious leaders? You're not religious leaders at all. You might have studied these man-made religions, but you're not tapped into source. You don't actually know God, because if you did, you would understand that God doesn't need humans to determine when and where and how certain events are going to take place. Like, God's the one with that control. So if you're a human who thinks that somehow it's on you to actively make an event that was foretold of 2 centuries ago, no, 2 millennia ago, like, that's absurd. That's insane. Your attempts to bring about the prophecy is why we're all going so far off the rails. Like, you understand that, right? Like, your attempts to force a biblical prophecy that was never meant to physically occur in the ways in which it was told. Okay? Just because humans were not capable of comprehending the signs and the symbolism for what it would mean in the future doesn't mean, like, how idiotic are you? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so negative, but seriously, how insane are you that you think that you're the righteous one because you're actively trying to bring about an Armageddon based on a story someone told over 2,000 years ago? And you assume somehow that the person telling that story was being inspired by divine forces and not potentially just being manipulated by malevolent entities, physical living entities, or spiritual beings, whatever, however you want to look at it. There are human beings on the planet right now actively manipulating other human beings because those humans have faith into the divine. And they're using their knowledge of energetic manipulation to convince these people that God is telling them to do things that God is not telling them to do. And because these people lack the discernment of understanding which is the voice of God, they're willing to do anything, just like Abraham was willing to literally murder his own child, thinking God was telling him to do that. Why on earth would God need you to prove your love to God by willingly holding a knife over the body of your own child? That's insane. If you ever find yourself in a place where you truly think God is telling you to physically sacrifice someone, murder them for the greater good, I mean, chances are you need to be in a mental hospital. Because even if that's true, even if God somehow is attempting to use you as an instrument, which makes no sense because God has the power to literally snatch the breath out of the body of anyone God wants to take home. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's like I had an experience once where I felt like, I don't want to say God because I knew it wasn't God, right? But like the powers that be were attempting to convince me that God wanted me to sacrifice my little brother, like physically murder my little brother, because somehow he was like the Antichrist, and until he died, like the world couldn't be saved. And I was in a very weird place, and I sat with that and I contemplated it, and I even tiptoed back to the room and listened in to try to determine like what the energy was. But ultimately, that's not me, and that's not my God. The God that I serve would not tell me to do that. The God that I serve would not tell me to murder my little brother. Period. In any way, shape, or form. And just like the first time I ended up in the hospital, when the voices were attempting to convince me to convince my brother to commit suicide, I'm going to reach out for help, and I'm going to go to the hospital and get some help if it gets to that point. And it doesn't even matter if it turns out that my brother and his so-called friends truly have been playing with the Book of Shadows and truly have attempted to sacrifice me for whatever, for the Illuminati, for the Freemasons, for whichever dumb little dress-up group decides that they want to try to convince kids or grown-ass people who never quite grew up because their growth was stunted by a media and a society designed to stunt their growth. Let's be clear. But whatever entities are doing this to convince people to do these things, like, it doesn't matter. It's not worth the retaliation. And I'm never going to be someone who is going to believe in any... He's upset with me. He wants me to take him outside. He wants me to stop talking to y'all. It's okay. He was an agent of the enemy. I know that sounds crazy to people who don't believe. That's fine. This message isn't for you. If this sounds crazy to you, then this message isn't for you. So just keep scrolling. But yeah, like, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me if you truly have attempted to sacrifice me, okay? Like, honestly, that makes me sad for you because you are extremely mentally ill. Extremely mentally ill. And you need help. But these people who are actively attempting to bring about Armageddon, like, they think that somehow it's their sacred duty to create the end of days that they believe the Bible was telling them about. Like, how little faith do you actually have in your Creator? How little faith do you actually have in the God you claim to worship, that you think that God needs you to bring about anything? God doesn't need you to do anything. You are a human. Humans are essentially parasites on the planet Earth, okay? All the love I have for humanity, all the faith that I have in humanity, all the hope I have for humanity, the actual truth of the matter is we are parasites. We have the ability to transcend that. We have the ability to rise above that and be so much better than that. But in terms of our flesh and bone physical form, we are nothing more than parasites, killing the planet Earth and everything that inhabits it. That's all we are. And if you think you're anything more than that, you clearly don't know God. If you think you are God, Kanye, you got a rude awakening coming, babe. I'm so sorry to tell you. You've got such a rude awakening coming. Whatever, man. Namaste to the true believers.